Matrix, a divine paradigm of love and universal consciousness, with your host, Janet Kira Lessin and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Together, we transform the world.
And now, here are your hosts, Janet Kira and Dr. Sasha Lessin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix. And I'm your host, Janet Kira Lessin, and I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, and our producer is Deborah DeFranco, and you're listening to Revolution Radio Studio B. Today, our guest is Erin Montgomery, and she is a member of a fourth-generation UFO contactee family. She began experiencing strange phenomena as early as 7 years old. She's been able to retrieve some of those memories through hypnotic regression in order to help relieve some of the trauma that was created by those early encounters with alien beings. We're going to talk about that on the show. She continues to have UFO and paranormal experiences throughout her life and currently is not only working as a shaman to help heal people energetically, she's working to unhaunt haunted houses. She works with spirits and reads people's cards. She's also learning how to do hypnotic regressions to help others who have suffered as she has. So she works as a clinical therapist in Roswell, of all places, New Mexico. And let's see, in the evening she found working with others on a spiritual level, writing new material, and engaging with more direct contact with beings not of this world. Her book is Dirty Little Secrets, and let's see. I'll have to have her tell us about it. I forgot to get the description of it. I'll go grab that while we're on the show. Sasha, Dr. Lessin, what would you like to say?
Well, Erin, I'd really like to know if any of your deceased ancestors are helping you actively from the other side, and whether you're helping them.
Oh, that's a good question.
Good question, yeah. Welcome, Erin. Thank you for coming on board today.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. Are any of my deceased ancestors helping me from the other side, and do I help them? Yes, actually, I have a lot of contact with my grandparents, honestly. I know when my granddad, my dad's father, has things to tell me, especially when it has to do with my dad's health or if he's going through something emotionally. My granddad leaves signs, whether it's a specific piece of candy in my way. I would always go and find the little butterscotch candies he would keep in a cigar box behind his recliner when I was a kid, and I would sneak behind there and get him, and he'd always swat me on the butt and just play games. And so now I know if I find one of those randomly, and I will, whether I'm walking down the street or anything like that, I know that it's my grandfather who is trying to speak to me, and I better listen.
So that's an interesting concept. So on some level, he's manifesting these things in this 3D world. Is he able to move? Oh, this is interesting.
You know, and it took me by surprise. I didn't even realize that's what was going on. But there was a series of events that led me to say, oh my gosh, that's my granddad talking to me. And then when I realized that's who it was, I reached out to my father. He was in the middle of a personal, a pretty significant personal issue. He had just left his wife. And so, you know, you just have to listen to those signs. You have to pay attention to those signs. And how my granddad did that, I don't know.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the main things we're going to talk about is your four generations of family ET contact. So how do you know it goes back 4 generations? You want to go back? Let's go back in a little time machine. We'll go back to your earliest relative. What happened? How did you find out about it?
Well, you know, there are a total of 4 at this point that I am aware of. My children being the most recent, me being 3rd generation. My father has had experience, and then this particular granddad. My my grandmother and my aunt have both told me a story about how he was courting my granny, and this would have been early 1930s, maybe like 1920s, in a small town in Texas, La Mesa. And he was walking home from her house one night. It was already dark, no streetlights. And a light came from the sky and shined down upon him, and he was terrified. So he ran home, ran to his bedroom, dove under the covers, and there was a light shining through the window, still on him. And he, did his best to go to sleep. However, one thing that is important to note is that he was actually pretty sick at the time. He had tonsillitis, bronchitis, something going on, a really nasty chest infection. And when he woke up in the morning, he was completely cured. So we know that something happened with him, with a light from the sky. And
but
so
nobody
in
ever
my
found
brain,
details. It was just the light, and then he woke up healed. He never told anybody anything more than that.
Not that I am aware of, no.
Okay. So then what else happened to that generation? Anybody else in your grandparents' generation have experiences?
Nobody else in my grandparents' generation that I am aware of had experiences. And of course, I don't know any further back than my grandfather. My father and his sister have both had experiences. My dad has seen. He doesn't talk about any physical experiences at this time, but he will talk about ships he's seen, things that he has seen. My aunt has seen beings walking on the ground under a ship, and things like that. However, during one of the regressions I had, my father was with me, so I know that he has had experiences. However, I don't know if he knows the level of experiences he has, and we haven't really addressed that together at this point. I'm a little nervous to talk.
So your father's still alive, so he could undergo regression.
Right. No, he's never gone under a regression. We have, I'm actually a little bit nervous about talking to him about that regression that I had, in which he was with me on ship. Maybe eventually I will have the guts to sit down and talk to him about it.
Why are you calling it a dirty little secret?
Why do I call it a dirty little secret? I call it a dirty little secret just because of the stigma that comes from somebody saying I am a contactee. As a therapist, it was really, I was really nervous about coming out with the story and saying, yeah, this is my reality. Like, are you going to fire me now? kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Like, what is this gonna, what is the danger of me coming out and still having a professional life? What is the impact of this information that I have, and and living my truth? And honestly, it was not an impact. Nobody cared at work, and living authentically at this point is more of a blessing than I could ever imagine. It's much more difficult to hide and lie about yourself. Oh, yes, I'm just a normal person. Just ignore me here in the corner. That takes a lot of energy.
Well, I can relate. My family, I don't know how many generations. I go back to my grandmother, and she did tell us about the ship that came, tree height above her, and then she didn't remember anything. So looking back, I think she got abducted, but now she died in 1964, so there's no way to talk to her. And of course, and my brother and sister are still alive. We haven't gone into the next generation. I'm not particularly close with them, but you're inspiring me to maybe reach out and interview the other. We now have my brother has great grandchildren, so we can go down another 2 to 3 generations, past our generation. So,
Right.
Listeners out there, if you have these relatives are still alive and they have these mysterious things, I encourage you to talk to them, see if you can get more details. So, okay, so you have, so let's I guess, go to your generation. So are you the only one? Do you have any brothers and sisters? Anybody else in your family besides you?
My brother, I have one brother. He has told me about times where he's, woken up backwards in the bed, with his head at the feet and his feet in the pillows. He's had copious nosebleeds and things like that as we were children. He does not talk about contact at all. But my aunt's children, I have also reached out to them and asked those same questions. And my cousin, who's a little older than me, she does not remember anything like that. However, my cousin that is closer to my age had an incident at about 10 years old when he was riding a bicycle home, and he was like hit with a very bright light in his eyes, and he doesn't know exactly what that was. But when he came to, he was 2 blocks back from where he was, under a tree with his bike propped up at the curb. And he said ever since that moment he's been terrified of the gray aliens that, on TV and things like that. So he knows that something specific happened. He doesn't know exactly what, but he also relates it to this innate fear of aliens. And so I believe that he has also had experiences.
Erin, when you ask yourself, why me? What do you get? How come you and your family have been selected?
That is I don't necessarily have the answer to that. There's a lot of speculation. We're a very Irish family, and then there's also a Native American strand. So I have heard that the combination of Irish and Native American makes that an exciting combination, perhaps for contact, but that's speculation. I don't know. But it apparently seems that the manipulation of DNA through the generations is important. They're watching us for whatever reason. They are paying attention. They're doing their experiments, and the family line is important. You go another generation down, and my children have experiences. I know that all of my cousins' children have abilities and things like that. I don't know about contact on their side as far as ETs go, but I know that my 2 children have definitely had contact. And so it continues, and it makes you speculate. Why are we chosen? And it's, my family is definitely not the only one. There's several of people that I know that have this multi-generational contact.
And then there's the question of, where did this happen? Did all this happen in Roswell?
No, I grew up in Colorado, and I have memories from there. Actually, yeah. And so it doesn't matter where I live, I have contact. Whether I'm here in Roswell. Mm-hmm.
But I grew up in Pittsburgh, and that was a hot spot. We saw the the bird creature that came up from West Virginia. Anyway, Mothman, yeah, had all kinds of things going on. But then when I moved up to State College and then over to Hawaii, wherever I went, there they came. So, but there was a location thing as well. When you were in Colorado, what part of Colorado?
I lived in Montrose, which is on the western slope, about midway through the state.
Mm-hmm. So that's not really known for sightings, but you were drawn to go to Roswell. What drew you to go to Roswell?
I came here kicking and screaming. I did not want to be here. When I graduated high school in Montrose, my father told me that I needed to be, an engineer. I wanted to go into chemistry. So he's like, you could be a chemical engineer. And New Mexico State University is the best school for engineers. That's where he graduated. And so I found myself in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And I was there until 2000. And so from 2000 to now, I've been in Roswell. And it was not my choice. My husband at the time and my children, I had a 5-year-old and a newborn, and we just had no more resources and had to move in with his family, who happened to be in Roswell. That's how I got here, and I have not been able to leave. So.
And do you like it now? Have you adjusted? Is it okay?
It's okay to a point. I think that in a very tongue-in-cheek way, this was the ET's way of forcing me to deal with my experiences and come to terms with those experiences. And I had, some of the experiences I had were really traumatizing, especially when I was young, and they affected me into my adult life. And it took the regressions that I went to for me to be able to feel comfortable sleeping at night. Not being as hypervigilant. I had all the classic PTSD symptoms. Granted, I had some other traumas that happened in my life, but I purposely wanted to go right to the heart of the matter with my first regression, like just take me to that time of trauma. And I think that living here in town has just forced me to come to terms with the fact that everywhere I turn around, there's going to be another alien face. Because this town is full. There's just aliens everywhere here.
So let's go back to that. Because when I was a kid, I used to be afraid to go out of my bed at night to go to the bathroom. And so I kind of didn't have a flashlight, but I learned to jump from the door into the bed. So I didn't have to, I guess they were grabbing my feet or something because I'm a lifelong experiencer. So I understand the fear. So let's go back into your story. What was the earliest incident you recall? What was going on?
I didn't actually have any recall of things happening until I was in my 20s. However, with the regressions, I was able to see that I had experiences when I was very young. That particular time that I was, the regression that went to the point of trauma, I was 7. And since then, I have remembered being 4 and on ship at the age of 4. That is just a little flash. I don't remember most.
What was what happened?
Yeah, we'll go back to
the trauma. So I'm 7.
Trauma.
I did call that trauma. So
yeah, go ahead.
When I was 7 years old, I awoke with being at the head of my bed, just right next to my face. It felt female. She was very calming. She was somebody that I recognized, and she had the large eyes, the big head, very much the typical gray that you see talked about. And there were 2 other beings at the foot of the bed. And between the 3 of them, they were able to just kind of put their hands on me and floated me up into the air and maneuvered me out into the hallway. And we floated up through the ceiling and up through the roof and up into a beam of light that took me onto a ship. At that point, I was calm. I was fine. I enjoyed the ride. Basically, it was just kind of fascinating. It felt very dreamlike. They ushered me into an exam room, which from my recall looks very much just like a doctor's exam room, really, with equipment around and what looked like a dentist chair. And I was put into the chair and strapped in, at which point I felt I started to get a little nervous as my hands and my chest were strapped down and a strap across my forehead. And as they were doing this, a very tall and thin being came in, very long arms, long fingers. I cannot recall the face of this creature. It's like kind of fuzzy. And I'm guessing that's just because I'm just not ready to remember exactly what it looked like. However, when he came in, I kind of came unglued. He just, however it was that he looked, it scared me horribly. I hate to say that he was too alien for me at the time, but I think that he was. Whatever was about this guy, it scared me to my core. And then he approached and they all worked to calm me down, and that it was at that point that there was an implant that was placed in the roof of my mouth. Yeah, and that moment with the scary creature and the implant, I think that is what caused the trauma at the time.
It by his hand or by a machine?
There was it almost looked like a fork with two prongs on it. It was a very long silver device, and the implant itself looked kind of like a fleshy, gelatinous mass. I don't know if that was just to help my body accept it better or what. I don't know, but it was like a prong. And I don't recall very much of the actual procedure at this point in time. I'd have to re-listen to the recording, but yeah, I can still see the instrument and the implant.
I'm imagining that your fear with him, I'm just like getting images that you're fearful of him because he was the one that did the procedures, and so that wasn't your first one. So here comes the procedure guy. Can you imagine going back to a previous time when you may have seen this guy, this being?
I could imagine doing it, but I'm not getting any recall right now.
Okay, so just imagine it, because, if you're making it up, where are you making it up from? So let's just imagine what was going on that you saw. Let's give him a name, too. I gave mine a name. I called mine George. What would you call him?
What would I call him? He was like a grasshopper. I would call him a grasshopper.
Grasshopper, then. So grasshopper, where did you see grasshopper before?
It's almost like I've gone completely blank and I get really nervous.
Okay, so get really nervous.
So there's like this, I feel like there's like a block, nope, I'm not going to go there. Which I guess doesn't surprise me.
Right. Okay. Well, we don't have to do it live on air, but some people just, it comes right back. But that's okay. Sash, what do you want to say?
I don't say anything.
He doesn't want to say anything. Okay, let's continue. So we'll just go by. So you had this reaction, and you said that your brother had a reaction, like a fear. So if we look at fears, we can go underneath it and sometimes see what happened before. But that's okay. If you're not ready, it's not time. It's totally fine.
Apparently not time. Yeah, that kind of surprises me that I had that reaction.
Yeah. So, but you did recall when you did a regression that something happened when you were 4.
Oh yeah, that was just a flash that I've had within the last year and a half or so. It's just a very fast flash. I was about 4 years old. I was sitting on the floor of a room that was very bright white. And I was in a circle with other children, and we were manipulating blocks, so to speak, like they were floating. Almost like Catch, but in slow-mo, if that makes any sense. And I remember an older boy walking by the doorway that was near me and seeing him. But that's it. That's the only bit of information I have from that recall.
Right. So you were playing with blocks. Is that what you said? Floating blocks? Sorry, I missed Okay. And were you able to move them with your mind or something, or was this physically?
It's we were as a group moving them with our minds.
Right. And then you see an older. Now, have you ever seen any of the other children that you were working with?
I actually have. As far as I know, I've met that boy, and I know that boy, and he's a very good friend of mine now. Yeah.
Because
the other
I
children,
met
I don't remember.
I was younger, and then later on, I meet them as adults, and we were dating or even having sex, and then I looked at their pictures what they look like as a child. And I went, oh, I met him on the ship. Did you ever have anything like that?
That's exactly what happened. Well, I wasn't having sex and we haven't met physically, but we were in a group of experiencers online talking about things, and we decided it'd be really smart if we shared pictures of ourselves as children. And when I saw his photograph, I'm like, I know you. And I have met adults now that I've never seen before, and like I know you, but I've never met you before. However, I suspect that was probably on ship, and one of those people was Terry Lovelace.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, back in the 60s, what was her name? She was one of the psychics to Reagan or something. Oh, Jean Dixon. Yeah, Jean Dixon. She said that the kids were being taken on board ship, and there was some kind of mating program going on. Now, I don't know if the kids were having sex then, but they were getting paired up. So later when they met in life, they would feel this attraction. It was like a love bite thing. And so I had two people. I had kind of forgotten that happened. I was a kid listening to the Beatles, and in between that news came on. And then years later, it was in the 90s, and I went, and I met one, and I saw their picture when they were a little boy, and I went, oh, I know that little boy. And I met another one. I said, this is weird. And I didn't tell them because I didn't want to freak them out, but I knew. So
right. Well,
they want to get you with certain people, and I think it's because of the bloodlines.
Yes. I think that is, it makes me wonder about, my first husband, who's the father of my children. I mean, was that the only reason that he was in my world? Because the DNA is what worked. They wanted that particular match. And I have wondered about several of the other people that I've been attracted to, including that boy in the hallway. Of course it can't happen. He's married. I was married when we met. So that didn't fly. However, we knew that very much we had been paired up on ship. Like to the point where he knew some of the tattoos that I had.
Interesting. And so that goes to say we're assuming that the ETs have the same morality standards we do, but they don't care on board ship if you're married or not. If they're going to have you mate on board ship or use your genetics to create a child, that's irrelevant to them. So that's very interesting. Yeah. So, okay, so your children. Well, let's continue with your story. So go ahead and kind of do your timeline for us, and I'll just be quiet and listen for a while.
Okay, so that flash when I was 4, the incident when I was 7, and they put an implant into the roof of my mouth. The next regression I had took me to about 10, 11, and that was when my father was with me. And I remember the night, and my dad has talked about the night. I had we were in Gunnison, Colorado. He was doing a softball tournament, and I was sleepwalking. Basically, I was trying to leave the condo that we were staying in. Kept going to the front door, trying to get out. And he's like, "Erin, what are you doing?" I just have to go. Well, do you have to go to the bathroom? No. Well, then you need to go back to your sleeping bag, go to sleep. And I would keep trying to get to the door. And apparently later that night, the ship descended through the trees. And one of the things I remember the most with that regression was the sound of the trees like scraping and breaking as the ship lowered down over us. And as we were, and there was a whole bunch of people outside. I remember there's just a lot of us milling about and excited about what was going on. And we filed on ship in a line. And I remember being taken into another exam room and a device placed on my head that was kind of conical, and it had a lot of wires. I don't know what it was. And then proceeded to have like a pelvic exam. So, I mean, this would have been right before my period started, right before, puberty really hit. And, I believe that, they were just making sure everything was working. And then I was taken into another room with other children at like podiums. There were these podiums around the room, and there was tall beings that were teaching. And the being that I was standing with, I named him. His name is Roland.
Oh.
So, I named this guy. And Roland helped me learn how to manipulate gravity. So almost a recurrence of what was happening when I was 4 with the blocks, I think. And I was able to float and move around. And I remember that was a lot of fun. And I was probably being too silly, and he was a little bit more stern. And then he was teaching me about the energy centers in the body, the chakras. But I couldn't get any further along. I just, like, the energy was just building and building in me as I was in the regression, and I was working with Yvonne Smith, and I just couldn't go any further. And that was the point where we brought me back out of it. But this being, I seem to have a pretty strong relationship with that guy, with Roland. And I've seen him in other places and other times.
And what did he look like again? What did Roland look like?
Roland looked very tall, thin, very, similar to the doctor dude that scared the crap out of me. However, his skin was a chalky white. Like, if you remember in the movie E.T. at the end where he's sick and dying, that kind of chalky white look. And his face actually is very similar to E.T.'s, more like kind of triangular, and he has the big eyes that are more round. And so I kind of think of him as a tall white being, but I don't know. That's, just having heard these terms, I don't know exactly what a tall white is supposed to look like, but that's kind of what I call him. He also wears a uniform. It's blue, and it's got either black or red piping around the edges.
Interesting. Yeah, we really don't know what species we're dealing with because there's so many of them. I know we try to categorize them, and, this is reptilian looking, and this is mantis looking, and gray looking, but there's just so many variations on the theme. It's until we're in the loop and they're considering us peers and educating us at that level, we're just like a bunch of chickens or cows or pigs, and they're not really meeting us as equals, which is kind of sad.
Right.
So Roland was like your teacher and teaching you. I was able to float too. I was floating when I was a baby, so they must have been teaching me how to float. Then I came home and I was practicing, and my mother caught me. I remember that, and it was horrible because then she was freaked out about me. She thought she had given birth to the demon seed, and I'm not contactee.
Well, I remember around that same time in elementary school, I would be able to, I had a friend, I'd say, okay, pick me up. And she'd pick me up, put me down, and I would shift my weight a little bit and say, okay, pick me up. But she would not be able to.
Yeah.
And then I would stop and say, okay, do it again. And she could pick me up. So I was able to manipulate gravity at that time. I don't know what I was doing.
Yeah. And I remember Sasha used to, he was, had to take care of some kids, and there was one of the kids that could do that. He said, how could she make herself so heavy? And I'm a full, 6 foot tall adult, and she would make herself so heavy, he couldn't pick her up. So, she must have been learning it too. That's interesting. I want to go back to your implant that you got at the roof of your mouth. Do you have any idea of its function?
No, except for I've had other experiences with, around my nose. So I wonder, like, what cavity they were going into. I know the pituitary gland is not very far from where they were inserting it, which would do what? Stimulate hormone stuff. Yeah. Which I guess doesn't surprise me if they wanted me to accelerate with puberty and things like that. That would be a good place to put something. But I've had dream type images where something's being inserted in my nose and I'm asking them what they're doing and they're telling me it's for communication purposes, things like that. So I don't know exactly what the implant in the roof of my mouth has been for, but I know that other implants they have told me an increase in communication.
Okay, so the nose was going to be for what? Communication? I have one up my nose, and it's given me horrible sinusitis my entire life. It's like it's grew up, right? It's like, oh. And I have one behind my ear, and now that I'm 66, it's making me go deaf. I know it's related to it, but it's hard to explain that to a regular doctor, right?
Right.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Well, yeah. One time I had a psychic just start reading all my implants and tell me what they. One was for like sexually transmitted diseases because I was actively dating, and so it was like, we want to protect you in case you slip up, because we're very valuable to them, right?
Yes. Oh, yes.
They keep us healthy. We're part of a multi-generational experiment, and then they have a lot invested in us individually, besides our family line. So, Sasha, you're back. You have any questions? No. Okay, so we'll continue. Okay, so how old are you now? You had that experience where you thought they were trying to accelerate you so you could be able.
Right. I am currently. Yeah, I'm about to turn 46.
Okay, you're 46 now, but when they were trying to accelerate your meds coming on.
Yeah, I was 10. I was 10
what?
and I was 10 years old and I started when I was 11. So.
Oh, okay. So that, we have to look at that, I think, as a society. Our kids are starting their periods much younger than they used to. Like my sister's, she didn't start till she was 17, and then I came along and I started at 13. But then the next generation, they're starting at 9 and 10. So there might be something to do with their reproductive program, their breeding program.
My cousin's daughter, my cousin that had the experience on the bicycle, his daughter was 8. So, and they can't figure out why. They've been trying to figure out why, but they can't. So it really makes me wonder.
Yeah, just saying it here makes me wonder. So, okay, so what happened? Let's go back in time. What's the next? Well, it doesn't matter if you recovered under hypnosis or if you spontaneously remembered it. Was there anything you spontaneously recalled without regression?
I wanted to go back to that particular time because right before I was scheduled for that regression, my husband at the time had woken up and was trying to leave the bedroom using his cell phone as a flashlight, and it flashed in my eyes, and I had a moment of recall of being excited and standing outside and knowing the ship was coming. And so I told Yvonne at the time, like, I was really excited and I want to explore why I was excited, because usually when I do a regression, it's something scary and I didn't like. So why am I excited? And please let this be a good experience. And, honestly, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a scary, uncomfortable experience. I was fine.
So what happened? What did you recover?
That's when I recovered that whole, being outside with my father and the group of people, the ship coming down and going in, and the first pelvic exam.
And did they explain why they took you? Did you uncover why they took both you and your father?
No, I didn't go into that.
So that didn't come out.
Nah. He was ahead of me in the line, and I didn't see him again. And of course, since I got stuck in that moment with Roland with the energy centers, I didn't get to go any further through what happened next and be able to resolve it, like how I got back, or even how my father got back. Yeah. I do hope to go further into that next time I have a chance.
Yeah, it sounds like there's more information there.
Yeah.
And you're not comfortable asking your father about it.
Not at this point. Of course, he could be listening and give me a phone call tomorrow, but who knows?
That might be interesting. Yeah, because my brother and sister, we're all old now. We're in our 60s and 70s. It's like we're finally having these conversations. And, what happened to you? What happened to you? And it's really exciting when you get to that level.
Yeah.
Where you can connect the dots, and then the things in your childhood make sense. Like as a child, you're afraid to talk about it because you might get ridiculed. But
right
now, unravel that mystery and figure it out more. So, and actually during the conversations, my sister said, "Oh, by the way, the grandmother that had the experience, she said her brother was fought the Foo Fighters in the World War II, and so there's enough." And I went, "Wow, this goes way back." So, okay, now what else do you want us to know about your personal story before we go into another generation?
Anything else in my personal story? Well, let's see. If we progress into my teens, that's when a lot of paranormal activity started to happen. I knew there were ghosts around. I had some moments of levitation, like missing time, added time.
Let's break that down. So what happened in terms of ghosts? Where were you living when you were in your teens? Were you still in?
I was still in Montrose, and my dad had remarried, and I spent most of my time in his house, which was my stepmother's, and the house was built, I think, the turn of the century. So I think it was like 1890s when that house was built. So it was over 100 years old at the time that I was living in it. I would not go into their bedroom unless I absolutely had to. There was just a real creepy feeling in there. Doors would open and close on their own. We had items that would disappear, and then on occasion reappear, like a piece of luggage, an entire set of dishes. And we just would joke and say they went to the other side because we didn't know what was going on. I had a series of dreams about this girl. Well, she, sometimes she was very young. Like I would be in the bathroom doing my hair in a dream, and she would be in the bathtub, and I knew she was a ghost, and I would, show her to my family, like, look, it's a ghost. And but I knew she was, like, later on, she was older and like a teenager, and she would come and she had on a jacket that had an A on it, and it was like I put a piece of paper with a pencil next to my bed saying, write down your name. And I woke up to the sound of the name being written on the paper. Of course, it was a dream, so it was bizarre. I found out later, though, that was actually the grandmother of a boy that I was dating when I was in high school. Very interesting series of events.
So
yeah.
Wait, let me break this down. You're seeing a girl ghost, and she's in your tub, and she's young when she's a girl.
When she's little, yeah. And then I saw her as a teenager, and I knew it was the same person. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew that. And then, I was home alone one night, and my boyfriend was supposed to be coming over, and he was really late. And I thought, well, what's going on? And then I heard like boom, 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 really loud from downstairs. And I thought, okay, he's here. And I went and looked out the front door. He was not there. I looked out the back door. He was not there. Looked out all the windows. There was nobody there. And I thought, that's weird. I go back upstairs. There's 3 floors in this house, and the TV room was on the 3rd floor. So I went back to the 3rd floor watching TV. 15 minutes later again, boom, 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 boom. I run back downstairs, and there's nobody there again. So I'm yelling out into the street, like, who's here? What do you want? No answer. Go back inside, go back upstairs. I hear it again. And then he actually was at the back door this time, and he had been beat up in the alleyway. Yeah. And that was so strange, cleaned him up, got an ice pack for his cheek was swelling and stuff like that. And then like the next day we went out to eat with his family, and his mother said, maybe it was her grandmother, I don't remember. It was either her mom or her grandma grew up in that house. And her name started with an A. I don't remember, Alice, something like that, Aline. I don't remember what the name was exactly. But it made me realize that this kid who got beat up, it was his ancestor that was trying to get my attention to say he's in trouble.
Oh my goodness, wow. I'd never heard of a ghost coming and showing themselves at different ages. That is the first I've heard of that. Like when they were young and then older. But they were trying to get attention to save him. Fascinating. Yeah. And so the sound they were making, what did it sound like? Was it a door?
It sounded like somebody pounding on the door really hard.
Uh-huh. And he wasn't pounding on the door trying to get in, right? He was in the alleyway.
He was in the alleyway. Nobody was there. The 2 times that I heard it, nobody was there. The 3rd time I heard it, he was at the back door.
Interesting. So did you ever see this ancestor again of his?
I wasn't there very much longer after that, but I did not have any other experiences after that with her. No.
So do you think you were able to communicate with ghosts because of what the ETs had done to you?
Honestly, I think so. I think that, and I don't know any experiencer who does not have that ability. I think that whatever happens with the communication with the ETs includes, awareness of other beings that are around us and being able to feel the energy, hear and see things that perhaps other people don't hear and see. Even empathy, I think, all stems from contact.
That's
or perhaps
really
genetic, or the genetic manipulation. I don't know. Maybe both.
So maybe contactees are a little more empathetic.
I think so.
Right, because they're working on our emotions and our psychic abilities, and when you're psychic, you can feel people on a deeper level. So thus you have more empathy because you feel more.
Yeah.
Correct? Something on that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, we could do a correlation between, narcissistic and sociopathic behavior and contactees experiencers. Our contactees more kind and loving. That would be an interesting study.
It would be an interesting study.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're selected. They're more compassionate.
Very well could be, or bred to be that way. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So you call your book Dirty Little Secret Confessions of an Alien Contactee. What are your confessions?
The confessions come into play when the book has some of my experiences in it, but really the book is the progression of me going from being in a state of trauma and afraid to sleep and just coming to terms and understanding as much as I can, which is not very much, what is happening to me and how I have been able to handle it and get to the point where I'm okay talking about it, feeling more secure about it, and no longer being afraid either of contact or talking about my contact to others. There are some things in there that really have me question, such as thoughts of Stockholm Syndrome. I am reported having been with people while they're having procedures. I had this dream and you were with me and I was going through an operation and you were right there comforting me. And I'm like, no, okay, that wasn't a dream, but, or I was having an astral experience, and you led me down a hallway to where I needed to be with these beings. And so it makes me wonder, like, why am I all of a sudden helping people in these experiences and these, experiments? Really, why am I doing this?
Yeah,
why am I
what's your
willingly doing this?
What's your answer?
What's
your answer?
My answer is because I think it's okay. I think what is happening is okay, and we just need to be calm and work through it. And then my question comes, is that because that's what I've been trained? Is that how I've been brainwashed? Or is it the truth? Is it okay? I don't know. I don't know which is right.
If you were to just go into a gut feeling, do you think it's okay or do you think it's not okay?
Gut feeling tells me it's okay. At this, and I say that because I think that if I follow what I am, what comes to me with my intuition, if I am led to go to a certain place, or I'm, like even going back to school, because I was a librarian before I even thought about being a counselor. I was happy as a librarian. But apparently they needed me to be a counselor. And so I went that way. I'm still a baby counselor, but I'm, headed towards licensure and all of this. And then I was led to the job that I got, and it was very simple. And if I just allow myself to follow the clues, I succeed in life. If I go against what I am being told is a good thing, then I struggle. And so to me, I don't know, but I don't know. I just get caught up. Is this a good thing, or am I being bamboozled? I don't know. But honestly, I feel that this is the way that it's supposed to be. And I also feel that I need to help others get to a place where they are okay with what's going on.
I wanted to look at the am I being bamboozled thought. Do you have any idea where that comes from? Was there an experience? Did you feel deceived? Did you catch them in a lie? Any more information on that?
I have not caught them in a lie. However, I have, some of these procedures and the fact that they are creating babies and taking babies, and I have experienced myself, and it is not okay to not be with your children. It is not okay to not have contact like that, from a human perspective. And then to know that I am there helping other women through the procedure of the extraction of the children and keeping them calm. That's where I'm like, wait a minute, I don't like this.
Mm-hmm. So what is that breeding program about? Have you given birth or carried or whatever the genetic material for children? Have you been shown them?
Yes, I have. I am aware of several of the children. Oftentimes they're named. The last time this happened was a few months ago, and the baby's name was Chandra, and I introduced her to 4 or 5 other little beings, very young, like a stair step. And so I'm aware of several of them, and I have spent some time with them, but not very much. An interesting new twist on things is I have been taken on ship where there are mothers who refuse to bond with the babies, and so that I can bond with the babies because they need that human contact and that human love. That's only happened to me once at this point. But I think it's interesting, and it tells me that they take very seriously the human side of these children. However, I don't have any other information on what happens to them when they are not here. I don't know.
Okay, let me look at that. Okay, so you're saying that there were the mothers, the ones that had the genetic material with the children. Mm-hmm. They're not bonding with the children. They have you come and attempt to bond with the children, but you think it's only once, so that really wouldn't be I mean, you would think that the children would need to have more bonding than just the one-time experience with you or even other mothers. So I'm wondering if they're just a series of mothers or if you might be being taken more than you remember or, using that term.
I think that is probably very true. I am sure I am taken much more than I remember. I don't have proof of that, but, I think that I am taken a lot more than I remember. I did wake up with a scoop mark the other day that it was brand new. And I have no recall of anything that happened. But yeah, I know I'm like, okay, so trying to order my thoughts. There's one child that I remember giving birth to and then seeing her as a toddler. And there are others where I've seen just a couple of times, but not a lot. And then the time that I was taken on ship to help it was a set of twins, actually, with the bonding.
You gave birth to it? You weren't just carrying it and they took it. You actually went through a birth process with this child?
Yes, I have had those. And this is where things get really complicated when it comes to ET contact. Is half of the time it feels like a dream, but it's not. And so it gets complicated trying to explain it. Like, I've had this dream, this happened, but I also know it's real.
We're on break. Sorry.
Okay.
It wasn't
That's all right.
Back to the book. Okay.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all! See how the trouble you've started? Be
they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right, you tell them I'm coming, and hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio. All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
Aloha, everybody, and welcome back to the Sacred Matrix. And I'm your host, Janet Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. Our producer is Deborah DeFranco. Our guest is Erin Montgomery. Before we get back to our show, I'd like to remind everybody to please go over to that donation button on revolution.radio and make your one-time donation by going up to the tab on the left-hand side at the top, or go to the Patreon button for your recurring donation. And we do thank you very much for your donations because you help us stay on the air. So, Saj, Dr. Lessin, you're back. What would you like to say about our show thus far?
Well, one of the interesting things is that your line, Irish line, it sounds like you're part of the Syrian contact line, and that you're getting. Where are your ETs messaging from? Where's their command? Do you have any intimation about where they're coming from?
I don't. And I wish I did. And I was doing an interview the other day, and I was asked the same thing. And the interviewer said, "Aren't you curious?" Like, well, of course I am. But in the moment, I don't even think about that. So I've been trying to figure out how can I get this information? How can I be of mind enough to ask these questions? Why are you here? Where are you from? What are you doing?
Susie Hansen says that when you get it together to ask, that means you're ready to receive the answer. And so there's some devices that you can use to remind yourself that you wanted to ask stuff. Somatize it, like when my such and such tingles, or give yourself some kind of way you can try to remember and bring it back.
Well, the other thing is to realize that once you have contact, you're always connected. That's so right. You can just ask, before you go to bed, go to sleep at night, say, here's some questions I have. I'm going to go to sleep now, and maybe you can give me the answers. And the same with ghosts and interdimensionals. You can request it, and like Sasha said, when you're asking the question, you're ready for the answer. So that's what I would suggest. Just
that
ask.
Is really good. Yes, absolutely. Why not?
Why not? I wanted to finish up the baby that you gave birth to scenario, and then I want to let Deborah come in. Deborah always has good questions and feedback. So let's finish. So you're giving. So did you as a human walk around pregnant, or were you just pregnant when you were on board ship at night, or
did you have the tubercles of Montgomery that show that you're pregnant in the chemical sense?
I could take a test and it would come out negative. However, my breasts would be swollen and painful. I'd have to pee all the time. I was exhausted, getting many more hours of sleep. Having been pregnant and having 2 children, I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to be pregnant. And so to have those symptoms and not be pregnant is very confusing. And then a couple of months later, have an experience or, oftentimes it's dreamlike where I am giving birth. And oftentimes, remembering the child and the name and having that time to bond and things like that. And the odd thing is these babies are usually teeny tiny, like smaller than palm size babies. So I know that they take them early on in the in developing. So I think around 3 or 4 months, perhaps, gestation.
Let me ask a question that's about the Anunnaki, which is, did the male children have foreskins or not?
I don't know. I don't remember paying attention to that.
Yeah. And they're so young, and they're very frail and tiny, and they rush them right into their incubators or whatever because they're not fully developed. It's like the joey with a kangaroo. They retrieve them, but they've got to develop further. So
that was one of the big distinctions that the Anunnaki made about the Earthlings versus the pure Anunnaki.
It was really?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm going to start paying attention to that.
Pay attention. So you have these children, but you're saying they came out genitally, or they weren't retrieved by like cesarean or removal. What's your remembrance on that level?
I remember it, through the birth canal. Yeah. Every time I think about it, it is like an actual birth with the induction of labor and feeling the contractions and all of that. So, yeah.
Does the baby always present the back of the head first, or what do you notice about the presentation?
I'm trying to recall. That's interesting. My first daughter was back of the head first, and they tried to get her to flip over, and they couldn't get her to flip. And I was born the same way. I did not flip, or was it face up? Whatever it was, the opposite of what it's supposed to be. I was born. Yeah. I don't remember. Honestly, with the birth of the babies, I don't remember.
Okay, that's okay. It's just we're getting more detail. It's very interesting that we're getting more detail.
Right.
I give Deborah a chance to ask questions. And Deborah, are you there?
I'm here. So, Erin, what is the RH factor in your blood and in your family's blood? Do you know?
I know that I am type O, but I'm not sure if it's positive or negative. And I do not know anybody else's bloodline. It is something that I need to know. So.
And what color are your eyes?
My eyes are green.
Interesting. Okay. So you mentioned that there was a lot of paranormal experiences, right, when you were younger?
Yes.
As you were becoming more familiar with what was going on. So are you still having those same paranormal experiences?
Absolutely. I actually have a camera in my bedroom at night at this point because there is so much going on. Honestly would love to catch a creature in the room, but I've not gotten much. There's one flash of light that I have a still photograph of that looks like an entity looking down over the bed. But I have all sorts of activity happening all the time. There's orbs, there's things just zooming around my room in these crazy patterns. There's these squares that will float through and shift and move in these bizarre patterns that really cannot be explained. And I am able to do some mediumship. I'm not a strong medium, but I am aware when there's spirits around. I'm extremely empathic. I work as a shaman. So all of these things have allowed me to basically just to understand the environment to a level that, maybe the regular Joe down the street won't understand.
I pass my stick back to you, Janet.
Tell us about your work as a shaman. What do you do?
What I have come to understand, and I just use the word shaman because I don't know what else to call myself. What is it that I'm doing? A lot of my work has to do with healing of people through either things that happened to them in the past and just returning bits of their soul that has been left due to trauma, or somebody took a part of them that needs to be returned. Also, a lot of what I've been doing recently is work with, I guess the common term is past life work. And I have a different understanding of past lives than I think a lot of people do, and I see it outside of time. There is no time. There's really not any space. However, we have different lives that we're living simultaneously in different space-time locations, if that makes sense. And through the communication between the different selves, we can heal, we can support, we can learn from all of these different aspects of ourselves. And that's, when I do the work, that's what I'm helping people do is learn who needs healing in their soul self, the different iterations of self. Who needs healing? How can I help them? What are they trying to teach me? Things like that.
Wow. Do you have a central archetype or a guide within you and also outside you that's with you all the time? What's your special guide? Or Deva?
Yeah, I do. And it's a tree, which is kind of weird. He calls himself Metrius, and he's the one that has really led me to understand, this concept. And it's like the different selves are on the different branches. And he's the one that helped me to understand that a person that I thought was a guide is not a guide, but another part of me, another one of me. And and it's through my cultivation of the relationship with her and understanding her life, and she can just communicate really well, and so I was able to piece together the different bits of self that way, and starting to understand myself as a conglomeration and I'm not just who I am right now, but I am a conglomeration of many different people in many different times and places right now.
Wow, that's wonderful.
It's exciting stuff. I love it. I love working with this concept and helping people see, understand what I'm trying to get at, and help shift the balance. Really, if there's one of ourselves that is hurting or upset or traumatized or, whatever, we can go and help them and support them and help them heal. But then there's the other selves that may be a little bit more spiritually advanced and have advice for us, or they have gifts for us, and we can learn from them as well.
And that might be something that is revealed to experiencers, that we are multidimensional selves, simultaneously having many incarnations, and our avatars are on many planets and realms and vibratory frequencies. And I've been having that dialogue with experiencers lately that seem to be coming to that revelation. So this is far more complicated. But you mentioned something that was very exciting for me, is that your tree was sentient. And I have always hugged trees. I have always gone up to these majestic beings, and I just hug them and I go, "Oh, you're so magnificent." And that's even in our own woods here. We have these giant trees in our woods. And when I moved to Oahu from Pennsylvania, and they had giant trees like in the park, suddenly you'll see this tree that if you try to walk around it and pull your hands out, there are like 30 Janets all the way around. It's like, we take 30 knees holding hands to circumference that tree. And I said, this is an intelligent being. So tell me more about, what was her name?
Metrius, yeah. For a while I wondered if he was one of me, but I don't think he is. So that's where the name Metrius comes from. Me, tree, us. So I kind of break it down. I do a lot of that with these beings, trying to figure out whose name is what and what it means and all those things. But this is just an image I've had in my mind for a long time, and this tree is always there. And so I go to the, if you think about like a happy place or like a sacred space within your mind, this tree is always there for me and brings me comfort. It brings me solace. It teaches me things. He's just been that guide for me in many, many different ways. And he's just a part of my life, and he always has been. And I've done, like shamanic journeys, and I've done meditations, and I've done things like that, and I often come to be with him, and learn things.
So now, okay, we didn't do your children's generation and what experiences. Let's go into your children. So how many children do you have, and how old are they?
I have 2 daughters. The oldest one is about to turn 25, and the youngest one is 20. And yes, they've both had strange experiences. They wake up with the bruises and have had like strange spatial things happen. Like they'll see things moving in the sky, blank out, come back, and things have moved in the room. Like or one time they were all at a park and a trash can was like no longer there that was there. And, so they've had these bizarre things happen. My oldest at one point in time had woken up from a nap and came into the living room where my youngest and I were sitting, and she's like, "Thanks guys for putting me back into bed." And we're like, what? We haven't been in your room. And she said, "But it was you two caught me and put me back into bed." And I knew when she said that what had happened, and the use of the screen images of people that bring comfort and things like that during an experience does not surprise me that it would have been, me and her sister that she was seeing as she was returned to her room. So, they don't like it. They don't like talking about it. And, the oldest one pretty much just turns around if I mention it. And, the youngest one keeps telling me, "I really don't want to hear about this anymore." And,
when they attribute stuff to you that you think they made up as a screen memory, I'd certainly entertain the hypothesis that you might indeed have been there doing that.
That never even crossed my mind. What if, wow. Yeah, no, that never crossed my mind. It would make sense though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Huh.
So, trash cans and dishes. What are they doing? Disappearing things.
I don't know.
They're asking for your attention, obviously.
Asking for attention, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't think the set of dishes ever returned, but the piece of luggage that was taken did return on the day that my parents were moving out of that house. And it came back covered in dirt. So it had gone on some sort of adventure. We know that.
It came back dirty. Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
They took I had a watch from a boyfriend that died, and so it was very sentimental. And one day I set it down, and I had a normal place I set by my computer, and then it disappeared. And Sasha helped me, and we looked everywhere, and I gave up, went to bed. I came out the next morning, and it was sitting on top of my keyboard, and it's like, what? It was definitely not there. So, in Hawaii, we say it's the Menehunis, but it could be the extraterrestrials. But they're quite the tricksters. They like to play.
Oh yes, they do. And I think that's something that is not talked about very often is the humor and the joking around that can actually happen with ET contact. They do have sense of humor, and they do just try to make you laugh sometimes, and I love that. And that is one of the reasons why I feel like maybe this is okay. It's funny. They make me laugh sometimes.
They do. What you want to say, Sasha?
Just in particular, psilocybin cubensis is a medium in which ETs love to make contact. So that's one thing to know. Dimethyltryptamine is really good for being able to feel this and communicate with the spirits of trees and the devas, the nature spirits. So those are doorways if you know how to use them.
Right. Yeah. Different portals.
Right.
One time I woke up, I felt somebody staring at the back of my head. I turned around. This is right by my bed, and there was an owl that was like 5 or 6 feet tall. And I turned to, I looked directly at the owl, and I said, "Oh, really?" And then he shape-shifted into a gray. It was like a big laugh. An owl, really? Come on! And it was dawn, so clearly, I mean, wasn't shadows and shadows. But see, that's what we're talking about. When you get comfortable with seeing them, then they will show themselves more. So, and then,
yes.
And I reminded of Whitley Strieber. He said he finally got comfortable, and then he started seeing them not just on board ship or as some kind of mystery, but they started actually. He got to the point where he was able to meditate in a lotus and sit across from them, and they were, communing for an extended period of time. So. And yet, what I'm looking here is that you described your experience as trauma and that you are suffering from PTSD. So, and that's the title of your book.
Yeah, it's still affecting you. In other words.
So.
And it still does affect me on occasion. So, I mean, I'm coming to terms with it. And, I've had some really negative, nasty experiences, not, we haven't talked about at this point in time. But then I've had some positive, very loving and gentle experiences. And then I've had some scary things that happened, but they were not necessarily negative and bad. And I think that there's a huge difference here between something that was scary and affected me on a level that I have these body reactions to now. And that is really what I am being shown and talked, they're telling me now is working through those traumas so that we can just sit and have this kind of conversation without any knee-jerk reactions, without you going into fight or flight, because we really have stuff that we need to tell you, but you have to be in a calm state for us to be able to communicate. And that's really what I think your drive right now is with other, experiencers. Let's help you get through this trauma. Let's help you come to terms with what happened that may have been scary, but is not necessarily negative, so that we can really understand why they're here and what they want. Because we can't do that if we slip into a trauma state.
Have you been double traumatized by having a military or a government people bug you in some way?
I have not during, they have not knocked on my door. I do not have helicopters around or anything like that. However, I have had experiences, one in particular where a baby was born, but there were military humans around, and that was awful and terrible and horrible. But I set it to the side. That was a different experience, than usually what happens with me. It was different. It was awful. It was not only terrifying, but just horrific in the fact that there were humans there, or one in particular human that I saw, and he did not care. And I think that really just really impacted me. But that is separate, from being 7 and just being afraid of what's going on, where they did not mean me any harm.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Did you notice anything about the humans that were there? Were they uniformed? Were they men or women? What did you notice?
The one human that I remember the most clearly was a man, probably early 60s. He had a buzz cut hairdo. It was white. He was in fatigues, but he also had on a white lab coat. He was carrying a clipboard, and he was surveying the room. I was in an underground facility because I could see the rock walls. They were rough-hewn rock walls, and there were many of us women in the same state, being induced with labor, and it was extremely painful. And, the room was just full of screams, and I was strapped down. However, I was able to see around me that there were other women going through the same type of procedures.
So when you say you were forced, did they make you swallow stuff that started you to deliver? How did they do that?
I don't. I remember being taken out of the house in this strange stretcher, and I blacked out at that point as I was like phasing through the wall, thinking, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I was gone. And then I woke up in the point of labor, like just, that wonderful feeling of being ripped in half that happens when you're going through labor. So I don't have any recall of anything between leaving the house to that state, unfortunately.
So there's other women. They're all coming due at the same time, or they're just enforcing. They must be in a. I wonder how they got. If they were impregnated by the military or by ETs. What did they do with the babies? Did you see what happened to babies once they were born?
No, I didn't see what happened. I wasn't conscious much long after seeing the guy looking around and just not even wanting to make eye contact. He did not want to. I don't know if he didn't want to feel it, didn't want to be there. He just didn't care. My suspicion and my fear is that I was carrying a hybrid child from the ETs, and that they knew about it, the government or whoever did this knew about it and took me and apparently several other women and took the babies. And I don't know what they did with the babies. I don't know. But this is just stuff that I've recently started to really think about. Like, wait a minute, this is different. And what are they doing? So just within the last maybe 6 months, I've really started pondering that particular incident and how it was different from everything else that I have experienced and putting it in a different category.
Yeah. Yeah, this is all food for thought, like what is really going on. So we have the ET program, we have the human program. Now, and they do make mistakes. Like Elizabeth Diamond said, she was part of a program where they were taking a lot of the children in her neighborhood. This was the ETs. And one time, one of the little boys was returned, and they made a mistake, I guess, with the implant, and he died. He was dead. He was returned dead. And
oh my God.
So that's traumatic, and so what were you going to say, honey?
I was just saying that it's so intense between a mother and her the fetus she's carried, that you and this child that the military took from you are in contact. And when you think of her, this is one way of visual thinking about it. When you think of her, she simultaneously must be thinking of or contacting you, because in a holographic sense, you're both within each other as fractals. And so whoever this being is, you're in contact with her, and you can open contact and say, I want to talk to you. And another thing is you can sometimes ask your ETs to manifest. It's sometimes difficult and sometimes not difficult. Sometimes they'll just make a head.
Right.
So that you're much more active in contacting your children and your extraterrestrial, especially your allies and guides.
Right. Man, you have brought a lot of things to the forefront for me to think about, things that I have not thought about at this point in time. And, actually, a lot of it may help really bring some understanding in what's going on.
Yes, I wouldn't be surprised if your dreams give you further explication of these things that we've stirred up.
Yeah, I bet they will. I bet they will.
So, and that's what I find is that the contact is ongoing. I'm no longer at the age where I can procreate, but now I'm kind of like in a different program, and I'm helping other people in the program. I'm going to projects on other planets. We're doing some colonization. I've been part of these huge meetings and smaller meetings, a large gathering of 100,000 unique beings, and then have the smaller council meetings. Are you aware of as you progress in age and you get more mature and less reactive? Are you aware of them moving you into other programs?
Yes, I think so, and I think that's some of the times where I'm helping others that are in in either giving birth or going through a procedure. I'm aware of that. I also know that I was in some sort of conference and learned something, and this was just a couple of years ago. However, I don't know the content. Is like I blacked out, so I don't have the information. But a lot of what I'm experiencing now are these things about understanding the communication by the different interdimensional selves and things like that. And that seems to be really emphasized. Like that's what I dream about. That's what I learn. But I don't have a lot of like the colonization or anything like that. I'm not aware of.
Right. But it's exciting because when I go to sleep, it's like I have this other job. I have this human life, and
right.
I guess, and I know that like there's one place I know the city, and I know down there is the outdoor marketplace, and over there's the ruins. You can go tour, what civilization was a million years ago, and the transportation. It's kind of like when you're walking, you can walk across the city in an hour. It's like a whole big city. You just kind of float, and you're. It's something in the shoes. I'm not sure what it is. It's like, whew, I'm zooming all over the place, but slow enough that I can just stop and, I want to look at this. I can go over and taste some food in the market or pick up items. And they don't have money. They want you to take their goods and service. So they go, if you go and take their food that they're cooking or, making, that's their reward. It's like, I gave away, so many cakes today. And so they're happy that someone admired their goods and products and services and whatever. So Anyway, that's one of the planets I go to. And then sometimes I'm like kind of flying, maybe I'm a bird or an air being, and then sometimes I'm swimming. I'm not a dolphin. I'm something else, like maybe a mer person. So, but let's go into like the next step is helping people. So you're helping people on board ship, but you're doing counseling. You're a married family counselor, and you're learning how to do hypnosis. Tell us about your life.
You're doing the same thing on the Earth as you are on the ship.
Right.
Yes, pretty much, yeah. And there's just this drive, this huge drive. Like I have got to understand PTSD. I've got to be able to help people reduce those symptoms, and it's very loud in my head sometimes. And I know that that's how I got to where I am. Like I said, I'm just a baby counselor. I've only been doing this for 3 years at this point, and I've got maybe another year left before I'm fully licensed. But, I have gone through the Milton Erickson, Foundation. I've done 2 full weeks of training for hypnosis. I got trained in the clinical hypnosis stuff. I'm waiting to work with Yvonne specifically on regression for contactees, because I really don't want to delve into that until after I have a little bit more specific training. But I feel like I'm just really needing to work with people like myself and get us to this point where we all feel comfortable enough to have that open conversation with the ETs. That it like I said, is this drive. It's like I can't stop working towards that.
And so, Sash is a therapist. He's been doing this since the 60s. He's got a PhD in anthropology and counseling psychology and been working with people since the 60s. What's the main thing that you would recommend? How do we help experiencers get over their PTSD, move from fight or flight to response? Sometimes it might be what they need to do, but when it's not, I'm putting you on the spot, honey, but go ahead.
If you understand the way everything is a resonance of everything else, when I'm with a person in therapy, there'll be some dynamics that are going in the here and now, which are resonating with childhood things and ancestral things and past life things and fantasy things and extraterrestrial things, and it doesn't matter which symbol system one picks. If one takes any of them, you'll get to whatever it is where a person is making a block between themselves and the experience. And it's if I was going to go into it with a little depth, it would be that we understand how we have bonding patterns with everything and everyone so that we are vulnerable and they too are vulnerable. And that's what I teach people. It's not just one ways the ETs are using us. There's a two-way relationship going, and there isn't any other, because the fractal of the apparent other is really a resonance, a part of the self. And if you can relax and feel and appreciate the other and admire it and express your appreciation, you can meet that consciousness with your full consciousness as, I am a being and I have much to contribute too. I would like to get to know you and empathize with. There isn't an other. How is that other resonant with a part of you?
So
I like that.
On some level, they need humanity in order for themselves to continue. Also, they, like the Greys, their job in the universe is to diversify creation. So they take different DNA and they combine them in different ways, and then they put these different species on different planets because these different plants and animals and insects and bacteria and everything adapts on different planets and evolves, and so that's their job in the universe, is the evolution of creation. And so they need us. They need our genetic material. And then apparently, at least the Greys, a lot of the species are learning about emotions, because we have an emotional capacity that exceeds many species. They don't have this ability to feel like on the same level, because they're connected to each other. So they're getting that all the time. But there's part of this being separate that intensifies emotions, right? The separation is painful. We can actually hit and kill people. We can punch, hit, hurt, harm, and that's horrible. But that ability to be that separate that you can actually punch somebody or kill somebody is part of this emotional lesson and value lesson and morality, or whatever you want to call it, that we're here to learn. So
it's teaching you to embrace your separateness and your unity both.
Right.
Yeah.
So what are you learning from your clients? Are they having paranormal and extraterrestrial experiences? How do you approach that with them? Do you have like a question and answer? What are you here to explore today?
Well, at this point, my clients are just through my clinic, or the clinic I work through. So none of that topic comes up unless they bring it to the table. The people that I work with outside of work is not really on a clinical level. It's more of a healing level. They either come for, I'm a Reiki master. Oftentimes we'll start that way and just work on like chakra alignment and removing any blocks. And then, like the client that I had here today, she, was able to reach into, like a lion, self. And she's like, I see this lion being, and then, I am the lion. So, and so through the energy work that we were doing, she was able to work her way to that. She doesn't know what that means yet, but she'll figure it out. And so some people come to me with this, understanding and knowledge of contact, but not very many, honestly, not at this point.
Yeah, we don't do as many clients in person as we once did, but I can remember, somebody coming for relationship stuff or smoking or something, and they're suddenly doing ET stuff. And so
right.
It's witness, and they just go where they need to go. Yeah, it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, honey. You have a question.
Another thing in contacting with extraterrestrials is to develop your sense not only of the regular senses of seeing and hearing and all that and real kinesis, but actually your energy system and the energy, what we learn in Jungian psychology, I'm a student of Hal and Sidra Stone, is that each of the chakras has a different field, an energetic field, and you can push people out of or block parts of or open parts of, and you can feel the energy fields of each of the chakras of the apparent other and how they're resonating with yours. And you can shield part of yours or open and so forth. And once you master the energy, learn to feel the energy, and then it's really much easier to deal with anyone strange or different than you, any extraterrestrial animal or tree, which is, what does it take to make a coherent field with this being? And that is when you look in, if you think of it as a person, look in another person's left eye until you feel the spirit deep within them. That's the same as the spirit deep within you. That's it, the same spirit that runs through you. You have your separateness and your uniqueness, but you have the oneness, and you can feel it. And that's what you can do. That's a part of amnesty with the spiritual part of the other being, and that's a good way to meet ET, I think.
Yes. Absolutely. Actually, the all in one and being a singular entity at the same time is something that I've been experimenting with and working on for the last few years.
So what do you want our listeners to know about you and about your book and about your work? We're coming up in the last 11, 12 minutes.
Well, let's see. I mean, yes, I've written this book, Dirty Little Secret Confessions of an Alien Contactee. Yes, I work, energetically, and I work on helping people heal their souls, basically. But setting that all aside, really what I feel is the most important is this working through the traumas. And, what we've been talking about for the last, 20 minutes or so is that, when we enact those trauma symptoms and we're coming from that place of hurt and fear, we are not able to connect as we need to in order to understand what is happening, who we are talking to, and what it is that they're looking for and want and are needing from us. And we certainly can't help them when we are in that state, or even be able to help ourselves in the process. And I think that another major drive of mine is, this is happening. This is real. We are going through disclosure right now. And, all the experiencers that are coming out and telling their stories, we are not coming from a place of, deception or anything. We are all being led right now to talk about this and show the world that this is really what's going on. And here it comes,
Right. And that's why I love interviewing contactees and experiencers and, and how they perceive it. Some perceive themselves as abductees and some perceive themselves as, experiencers. Some see themselves as, ambassadors, and some are in the secret space program. And others I've begun to categorize. So
we all grab different parts of the elephant of reality, and for some it's a tree, and for other people it's a snake.
Right.
Right.
And so the more views we have, the more complete sense we get of the elephant, until we realize we are the elephant and the blind man.
So one of the things that you're dealing with is PTSD and trauma, and so a lot of the early on they were trying to dismiss trauma related to alien contact and mix it up with, perhaps you were being molested as a child. And so are you finding there's any kind of connection? I remember that was one of the early, they were trying to dismiss it. Oh, you just had your, uncle coming in and diddling you. And no, So what have you found in that?
I have never had any thoughts or experiences or memories of being molested ever as a child. So to me, that's, it may be true for some, but it's certainly not true for me.
Right. So, and I really haven't found that either, but I remember that was what they were trying to dismiss it early on. So, what do you recommend? At one point I said we need to do like a conference and retreat with experiencers coming together, not just like sitting around a circle and sharing their stories, but having more therapists going deep, regressions, maybe some group hypnosis. We did other styles of conferences, but we had several facilitators that would, be in a large room, and they would have pillows and yoga mats, and they would lay down and get a group hypnosis. And then there was, questions and pulling it together afterwards. I remember, what was that woman in the 80s? She used to do those group hypnosis, and then she'd say, go to a future time. And then she coordinated all the future times. And she said there were like 4 or 5 major future timelines. And she would just collect the paper and then, write her books with. And these people did not, share their stories. So she was going to these 4 or 5 different timelines that all these people were going to, right? She was taking them. And she said, maybe we're really getting something here. So I'm just throwing out ideas. If you had all the money, you could create a program. What would you create for experiencers so that we could at last, come together, and let's just imagine there's no COVID anymore. We can actually meet.
There's no COVID. There's no worries about money. Absolutely a retreat where healing can be done on all sorts of different levels and all sorts of different modalities, whether it be like a shamanic type of healing, or you just go and speak to a therapist, or if you're being regressed. I mean, all of it. And maybe you would want to do all of it, and perhaps a week-long experience. And just, I have recently been connecting with more and more experiencers, and to me, that is like the most precious type of relationship I can have, because there is no inhibitions, there's no worries about being judged, and connecting and just feeling more real and less, like I have to be cautious about what I say, who I say to, all of those things, being more authentic. And the more authentic I act and interact with others, just the more awesome I feel as a person. Like this is my life, and this is who I am, and I am so glad I don't have to hide it anymore. And so bringing experiencers together to have that kind of bonding just with each other is so much needed. So much needed.
Yeah, it's like that's what brings up the sort of partnership feeling in society, instead of the dominator materialistic language they force upon us, which denies the spiritual. And so the community that you're forming by the kind of groups you have and experiencers have is authentic peer consensus groups, and it feels so good. That's the way people love to relate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It feeds the soul. It really does.
Yeah, so that's my reason why I got into interviewing. At least I get to connect. We've had such a learning experience, and it's so fulfilling connecting with other experiencers, and that's why I've got obsessed with it. I tend to get obsessed with things, and so this is my latest obsession. Is I'm so happy when I get someone like yourself, Erin, to go, oh, another experiencer. We're going to go into her story. So I'm looking into doing some webinars, and I have to figure out the technology. I know there's Zoom, but I think that the next thing we'll be doing is some webinars, and I don't know. At this point, I'm still like figuring it out. But I see that other people are starting to do it now that we have COVID, and that would be, whether we have COVID or not, it would be great because you don't have the expense of traveling and hotels and all that stuff. Although it is nice to face. So I'm looking. I'm going to develop that more, and I hope to. Anybody out there that wants to, pull this together, I think that'd be a great way for us to meet online. What are you going to say?
Well, it's
Josh?
good with Zoom because you can see the person's face. But even if you didn't have a live one, even if you're just looking at a picture, let's say you're Erin, you're looking at you're looking at a picture of your daughter. That will absolutely put you in salient contact with each other, and she'll feel you at that moment. So we can make contact that way with other people using their pictures even.
Absolutely. And the more training you have with that type of connection, all of a sudden you don't need the picture and you can just seek out their energy.
Yes.
That you're connecting that way up. But it's a process of learning. And to me that's important too. I do quite a bit of coaching as far as, helping people through, just learning these little techniques and progressing in their understanding of connection with each other and how energy works and how you receive information outside your normal five senses.
Great. So that brings us to your psychic abilities. What psychic abilities do you have? And are you able to train others to do that?
Yeah. They tend to come to me. If they have abilities, they come to me like I need help. And it's kind of funny how they are drawn to me. I don't quite understand it all. I'm just like, hey, what's going on? But understanding mediumship skills, like somebody, I may know that they are a medium and they're like, well, no, I don't see any ghosts. Like, well, but are you hearing them? Do you feel them when they come close to you? Do you have thoughts just appear in your mind? All of these different ways are ways that we receive information from spirit or from ETs or from each other. There's more than just hearing sounds and seeing things with your eyeballs. I am clairaudient. I do receive some visions. I get tons of deja vu. So I know that I have precognitive dreams. I'm empathic. I can feel energy when it is around me. Like if something was to walk into the room, I would feel it approach. I do a lot of dream walking, things like that. So I don't really understand exactly why I can do all that I can do. And I don't really feel like I'm adept at anything. Kind of like a jack of all trades and master of none is kind of how I feel. But I can pull upon all of it to get the information that I need.
Do you have any thoughts or ideas on what's coming down the line in the next few months to a year?
I know that something is going to happen at Christmas time. I don't know what it is, but I've been getting a lot of, and this started a couple of months ago. Like I'd drive by a house I've never seen before. There'd be a Christmas decoration outside, and I think that's weird. And then a Christmas song would come on the radio, and that is really weird for August, like what is going on? So I've been getting a lot of Christmas, nudges and hints, and so I don't know what's coming, but I know something is coming, and I don't know if that's personal or if it's across the board. And then another one was fall time. Fall time would be huge, and to me it really is. Everything's kind of exploded with people ordering readings and contacting me for shows, and all of this stuff is just kind of blossoming for me personally right now. So I don't know. It's hard to tell. Is it a personal thing or is it a global thing? I don't know.
I keep getting a picture of the tarot thing of the castle and the Sephira, the blessing from the old patterns being destroyed, making room for a new organization.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that. I think it's time. And I think that a lot of us are actually focusing on that to happen as well. focusing on those love energies and just emanating love in all directions, and it affects everybody that we're close to, and as they kind of grow used to it and start to project it themselves, and it just grows and grows. And I know that the spiritual communities are really pushing for that right now, and I think that it's making a difference. I honestly do.
Yeah. I know at the end of last year, I felt really excited about 2020, and then it was disastrous. So I don't know if I trust myself. But maybe it's just like the birth pangs for what's going to happen in 2021.
It's always the best of times and the worst of times.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I personally have been thriving through 2020. I've made some major life changes. Ending of a marriage and things like that, but I was also able to finish the book. I've done a lot of internal work. I've done, I don't know, I feel like I have been thriving even though I've been mostly alone, not traveling, things like that, but,
That's great.
yeah, I like my hermit stuff. I'm being a hermit right now. It's like it's been a really cool experiment of learning to love myself more and
yes.
appreciating company. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I got to get my book done, though. You inspire me. Okay, last minute. We're going to have one more minute, and music's coming on. What do you want to tell our listeners? Website, all that kind of stuff. Your book.
All right, yeah. The book is Dirty Little Secrets, Confession of an Alien Contactee. My website is www.peoplesouterdimension.net. You can reach me through that. You can always find me on Facebook. Dirty Little Secret has its own page. Send me messages. I'm willing to talk to anybody. Mm-hmm.
So it's been such a delight having you. You're wonderful, Erin. I hope to meet you in person sometime, and we will definitely meet. Probably going to be doing a Zoom, and we'll see each other's faces then. So
wonderful.
Okay, and Sash, what would you like to say to wrap up the show?
Play your part with a happy heart. The whole wide world's your home.
Oh, that's a good one. Deb, any final words, Deborah? Okay, she's not there. That's the music, so that's all, folks.
Aloha.
Aloha, love and blessings.